Welcome to the Higher Ed Retire Podcast with your host, Greg Shepard. Greg is a fee-only financial advisor who specializes in helping those in higher education to take control of their retirement. Since 2001, Greg has helped employees all over the country make the most of their retirement plans.
Hey there, folks. Greg Shepard here, your humble host, Higher Ed Retire Podcast. As always, I do appreciate everybody out there listening to this silly little podcast that I've produced now for, maybe 42 episodes. And on that note, some of you have asked, I've cut down my episode frequency. We're going to do once a month. That's my plan going forward. I'll never leave you hanging. That's not the case, or not my plan going forward. I enjoy doing these podcasts, and as long as you're listening and giving me feedback, I will continue to do so. So I guess bottom line is make note, once a month. That's the frequency going forward. And if you are so inclined, I do have a YouTube channel, so by all means, check that out. It's gained popularity, and there's a lot of shorter clips on the YouTube channel. Same title, Higher Ed Retire, Higher Ed Retire. And there's a number of clips on there that I know you can get benefit from, some good information regarding that higher ed retirement plan. So, moving forward, for those of you that don't know me, my name is Greg Shepard. I do have an independent financial advisory / investment management firm here in the Kansas City area, but with the evolution of technology, I am able to help folks just like yourself, assuming you're in higher education, all over the country. So let's go ahead and get the disclosure out of the way so we can kick off this episode. Investment advisory services offered by me, Greg Shepard, as an investment advisor rep of S&A Financial Services, Inc., which is a registered investment advisor. So here we go. Today, I'm going to talk about maybe two pieces of information, two items, depending upon time constraints. But the first one, maybe more importantly, is, every time I run into a situation that isn't really favorable to the participant, I like to share that with you. Practices to avoid, however you want to term these often not advantageous situations. So the most recent situation I heard about was from a listener just like yourself and a viewer of the YouTube channel that I do have. And this is an individual that's a DIYer, which is perfectly fine. A lot of you out there are of the like, and you want to do it on your own. You want to educate yourself. That's the purpose of these episodes and the YouTube channel as well, to give you information so you're armed to make that informed decision. However, as much information as this person gathered, he made a pretty, not catastrophic, let's not be dramatic, a pretty expensive, let's say, I can certainly say that, an expensive mistake. So let me elaborate. This individual, after listening to a certain episode of this podcast and also watching I think one or two videos, that pertained to this particular topic. He watched a lot of videos, but there's one or two that pertain to this topic. He educated himself in the sense that he found out through my information that TIAA Traditional is getting high rates given current times. Now, on that note, I'm recording this episode on Friday, June 23rd of 2023. The reason that's important is that TIAA Traditional right now is representing very high rates historically on new monies going in. The reason this is important and the reason you should take note of this is that this individual wanted to initiate what I call the 120-day reinvestment rule. Now, TIAA calls it something different. Okay, it's kind of beside the point, but the theory or the idea of this strategy is typically done. I'm sure there's other ways you can use this strategy, but where I've used it for clients and how I've seen other people use it as well is you have an old contract. Okay, now remember, make sure you educate yourself when I start using some of this lingo and terminology. So typically done with old contracts that have interest buckets, legacy money, old vintage money, not earning very much. And so what you can do is take those old contracts, maybe from a previous employer that are liquid. Okay, that's kind of a key aspect of this strategy is that it's liquid, synonymous with like a GSRA. Okay, just for example, a lot of you out there might have that GSRA contract. And actually this individual did. And what you can do is basically liquidate, sell that TIAA Traditional, keep it within the contract. That's very important in this case. Keep it in the contract, invest it in money market most cases, okay? You'll have a money market option typically or a stable value fund within the TIAA platform. And then you wait 120 days, and guess what? On the 121st day, reintroduce that money back into that same investment, TIAA Traditional, and realize the new interest rate at that point. Okay, so the only downside is you don't know in 120 days what that new interest rate is going to be. So let's just transition into this individual's attempted strategy. So I can't remember the numbers exactly, but he, again, after listening and watching a YouTube channel, he never contacted me, prior to doing this. He wanted to do it on his own, which is perfectly fine. And so what he did is he had an old vintage contract, interest bucket of an ex-employer. Okay, it was a GSRA. It was a liquid contract. And he was getting less than 4%, if I recall correctly. And so the idea conceptually was great. He wanted to, which he did, he sell that TIAA Traditional. Now, what he wanted to do, what he should have done, is keep that money in the contract. Okay, maybe some of you have an idea of where I'm going with this. He unintentionally, and after talking to TIAA reps, now TIAA reps are not supposed to tell you what to do. Okay, they don't really know, or are they not your fiduciary advisor? So this individual actually called TIAA and said, hey, discuss this TIAA Traditional reinvestment strategy. It said, yes, this is how it works. And again, they're not really supposed to tell you how to do it because they don't want, there's litigation issues. They're not your fiduciary. They can tell you how to do it, but they're not supposed to advise you on if it's a good idea for you or not. The reason that's important is that the individual told the TIAA rep, hey, I want to do this strategy and I want to take the income as a distribution. Okay, that's the huge word here. So what he did literally is took that TIAA Traditional in a liquid contract, sold it, took the money out of the contract as income, and then his idea was to turn around and throw it back into that contract and invest a TIAA Traditional. Now, hopefully you're hanging with me here because and I'm going to keep harping on this, what he should have done is sold that TIAA Traditional and kept that money inside the contract. He took it outside the contract as income, okay? And basically, for lack of a better term, got a check, okay? It was actually direct deposited to his account. And I think he may have told, if my memory serves me correctly, told a colleague about this, and the colleague's like, whoa, that doesn't. And folks, I think this was like, it's been a few weeks here. It was like $250,000, something like that. Maybe a little less, no less than $200,000 if I recall correctly. So imagine this. He got the money basically in his bank account, told a colleague of this awesome strategy he's doing. Colleague said, whoa, back up. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. You may want to, cross your I's and, or I guess dot your I's and cross your T's and make sure you did this correctly. So he, in turn, emailed me and said, hey, watch your videos, listen to your podcasts. Something doesn't add up here, maybe literally. So he told me what he did, and I immediately emailed him back and said, hey, we need to jump on a phone call because you got yourself a little bit of a problem. And it's one of those decisions that's irrevocable. This is a very intelligent person, a lot smarter than myself when it comes to various issues, but he did a good job of educating himself, but wasn't very savvy in this regard. And so I informed him, I said, hey, you took a taxable distribution. You will owe income taxes on that money. Folks, it was like $200,000, all right? He said, well, I'll just turn it back. I'll turn around and throw it back into that account. No, it doesn't. It doesn't work that way. You're done. You made one of those irrevocable decisions that I've harped about without talking to a professional or TIAA directly. And he said, well, I called TIAA and told him what I'm doing. And folks, they're really there to take your instructions. That TIAA rep is not going to say, whoa, maybe you shouldn't do that because that opens litigation, that opens, fiduciary responsibility. They are there to take your instructions, and they do a great job at that. Okay, so it's not the TIAA rep's fault. It is this individual's fault. And he kept telling me I did the best job I could to gather all the information. I thought it was a great strategy, so I tried to do it. It doesn't matter. Okay, when it's all said and done, this individual made a $200,000, well, it's not a $200,000 mistake. It's whatever the taxable liability is mistake. All right. So again, what we tried to do is keep that $200,000 within the contract, 120 days. On the 121st day, reinvest that money back into TIAA Traditional. I think the GSRA, I can't remember at the time, but around 6%. So it's a fantastic idea in theory. Execution, terrible. Folks, don't go down this road. Don't go down this path. All you got to do is make sure you talk to somebody that's familiar with this situation, anything that's dealing with TIAA Traditional, before you go down this path and on these endeavors of trying to do different strategies with TIAA Traditional, whether it's this strategy, the 120-day reinvestment strategy, or just distribution options. Talk to somebody. Feel free to contact me. I talk to you folks over the country all the time. When it comes to this stuff, I don't have a problem doing that. And a lot of you become clients, which is great as well. Now, time-wise, I think I'm doing okay. That's all I really had on that. We'll call it a cautionary tale. So again, when I run across these failed strategies, I feel like you all should know about these things because I don't know what you're really going through. I've done this so many times. And feel free to contact me, and humble yourself a little bit and say, hey, I had this issue. I think other folks would benefit from learning from my mistakes, right? I think we all can appreciate that, okay? So with that being said, I'm going to transition a little bit into another topic. I don't want to run too long here, so I'll take a few minutes regarding, I guess I'll title this second part of this episode, is TIAA or Fidelity better, okay? Now, I've done an episode on this prior, but a lot of you recently have emailed me and asked me, hey, I've got the option of TIAA or Fidelity. Which one's better? So I'm going to give you the short answer. I encourage you to listen to the episode regarding this. That will give you more information. There's also a YouTube clip where I explain this as well in a very short period of time. But the answer is, it depends, right? That's a pretty good out there for myself. So let me explain on this. Expand on this. In my opinion, this is not investment advice, folks. Do not construe it as such. Not investment advice. In my opinion, I've been doing this for over 20 years. So I'll give you my expertise, my thoughts when dealing with either TIAA or Fidelity or both, okay? Now, I emphasize both because a lot of you out there, not everybody, but a lot of you will have either TIAA or Fidelity to choose from in your higher ed retirement plan. So I've never run across where you can't use both. Okay, so let me expand on that. In my opinion, I think Fidelity's platform is better for equities. Okay, for those of you that don't know what equities are, they're stocks, stock mutual funds, right? When it comes to, let's call it the bond portion, Fidelity does have good choices, but as it states now, June of 2023, folks, that TIAA Traditional in lieu of bonds, I think is a good option. Can be a good option, not investment advice. You can combo both of these vendors together. You can split up your contributions. You can split up your static money, where maybe you have 70% over at Fidelity and 30% over at TIAA to access the traditional. That's just one strategy. Now, again, Fidelity has good bond options and more of them, by the way. Now, what I mean by that is that a lot of you out there will have brokerage link options. This is opening up another can of worms. Again, episodes galore on this, both on YouTube and through the podcast as well. Both vendors, it's been my experience, offer brokerage link. However, more easier to use is on the Fidelity platform. It's been my experience. So think about this. If you're a 70-30, just hypothetically here, if you're a 70-30 investor, you take 70% of your money, put it over Fidelity. If they have the brokerage link option, you take advantage of that. That opens the window to thousands of investment options. You utilize that for your equity/stock options and maybe some bond options as well. And if you want to keep 30% of your money or thereabouts more safe, look into that TIAA Traditional, okay, and split those monies up. So I think for your more conservative investors, I think TIAA may be a more appropriate option, whereas your more aggressive investors maybe can utilize the Fidelity platform more so than TIAA. Hopefully that answers that question. If you have more questions regarding that, by all means, contact me. We can analyze your situation and find you an optimized portfolio. Folks, that's all I got for today. As always, I do appreciate you tuning in. This is Greg Shepard from Higher Ed Retire. Hey, folks, go out there and take control of your retirement today.
Thanks for listening to the Higher Ed Retire podcast. Just because this episode is over doesn't mean you can't continue your retirement journey. Please visit www.higheredretire.com to see how you can work with Greg or to simply ask him a question. Thanks again.
S&A Financial Services is a registered investment advisor. Information presented is for educational purposes only and does not intend to make an offer or solicitation for the sale or purchase of any specific securities, investments, or investment strategies. Investments involve risk and, unless otherwise stated, are not guaranteed. Be sure to first consult with a qualified financial advisor and/or tax professional before implementing any strategy discussed herein. Past performance is not indicative of future performance.